On the 1st of June 1999, music changed forever. Music distribution changed forever. Music promotion changed forever. The way fans interact with artists changed forever. The recording industry, in terms of how albums are made, changed forever. You get the idea. Everything to do with music and the technology that brings it to the listener changed forever. Now, Napster was huge in 1999 into the year 2000. You had to be there to realize just how huge it was. Today, people who were born long after Napster ceased to exist in its original form don't know an era before you could press a button on any computer and hear just about whatever music you want to hear. But Napster was the first mainstream application that allowed users to do it. Now, how did it work? Because the internet was a much slower and smaller space in 1999. Well, it worked through a peer to peer or P2P system, meaning everyone's individual hard drives acted like a little server and it all connected on this Napster interface. So people uploaded their CDs mainly, but it could have been a digitized LP or a tape or anything for that matter. They uploaded their music to their computers and linked it to Napster. And that then linked it to people all over the world. And in short order, just about every song and every piece of music that had ever been recorded was on Napster. And you didn't even have to worry about the ones that lawyers tie up and won't let on modern platforms like Spotify or Apple Music. It was revolutionary. It was the record store for the world. There was only one problem. Napster was created without the knowledge and consent of the music industry or artists. Now, the music industry was totally united against Napster. They wanted to crush it, and they wanted to crush it any way they could. Artists, however, were divided, and the most prolific artists against Napster were Metallica, Lars Ulrich in particular. And one of the faces that became one of the champions of Napster was Public Enemy's Chuck D. They debated, I think, several times on the issue. Now, I thought Napster was great, and I think a lot of people did at the time. And Chuck D had some very important points. He talked about how the music industry wasn't some wonderful place where artists were able to be compensated in a relaxed environment for creating art. No, the record industry was corrupt as hell. Practices that were so unethical, practices akin to servitude and chatteldom, were approached by how the music industry treated not all, but some, and by some I mean a lot of their artists. They started dictating the taste to the public rather than the other way around. They chewed artists up and spit them out. And these were all of the points that Chuck D eloquently made when he was debating Lars Ulrich. And of course, the argument of Lars was that if musicians aren't compensated for the music that they make, then why should they make it? In fact, the year Napster came out was just about the highest grossing, if not the highest grossing year for the record industry ever. And that, again, was another one of Chuck D's point that Napster was like radio programmed by the people, a great promotional tool. And people have to remember that the average price of a CD in the late 90s was around $18 to $19, which is probably close to $28, $29 in today's money. And that's just ridiculous. Apart from super audio CDs and things like special issues, an average CD over the last few years has generally fallen below $10. And because CDs weather the used market a lot more than LPs, which are more sensitive to wear, it was clear that the industry was ripping the customer off, and yet the artists were not getting compensated in a commensurate way to the costs that the industry was passing on to the consumer. And let's not forget, a CD is far cheaper to make than a tape or an LP. So people were getting screwed, which is one of the reasons Napster again became so popular. Now, the music industry eventually succeeded in shutting Napster down through the court system, but they really ended up shooting themselves in the foot because the music industry never recovered from their war against Napster. The sales of CDs and other hard formats down, and they never really recovered. Budgets for artistic development were cut, everything shrunk, everything contracted. And there are many reasons for this, but they really did, I think, kill themselves when they killed Napster. Because if they had worked with Napster, this is what they could have accomplished. Spotify and Apple and all of these companies have to work long and hard building up servers, user interfaces, and a fully licensed music library sent to them by all of the owners of all of the master recordings. That takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. With Napster, the users built all of that infrastructure on their own sweat equity, on their own back. The users did it for people. Napster made the interface, and all of the library was made by we the people. Now, the music industry could have and should have played ball with that and worked with that, saying, okay, you did half of the work for us, but because we need to find a way to monetize it, we can have a system where we grant Napster for a price some sort of license so that when a song is downloaded or played, however they wanted to measure it, there would be compensation via those licensing fees. And Napster could have and would have done that because it had a lot of investors behind it because they thought, well, this is a good idea. We don't know how it's going to make money, but it can somehow. And even though it didn't, the proof with Spotify is that, yeah, you can make money doing this. And so the industry itself could have partnered with Napster, saying, right, we'll give you the licenses. You do all the heavy lifting with the library and all of the tech work. And for the few artists who want to opt out of it, we can arrange that on a case by case basis. Yes, lawyers always slow things like that down, but it would have been entirely possible. There is no reason why, through a sensible negotiation, that couldn't have happened. And if that happened, there would probably be no Spotify. There might not even have been an iTunes and an Apple Music because the music industry would have still, through a partner with Napster, controlled the primary means of distributing music. Here's what actually happened. So they said, fuck you, Napster, destroy it. And then some Napster clones like LimeWire and Kazaa came around. And eventually the music industry said, shit, we got rid of Napster, but we can't get rid of Napsterism, the phenomenon of peer to peer music sharing. And as the internet got faster and faster, the music industry got more and more screwed. So what happened next was that the tech industry, which, if anything, is even a less artist sympathetic sector to the music industry, they took over the music industry in all but name. Steve Jobs threw the music industry a lifeline by saying, look, the only way to compete with the peer to peers out there is to create something that is legal, easy to use with a superior interface, and something cheap enough to make it worth the while of the consumer. The music industry kicked and screamed. Steve Jobs wanted to sell each track on a record for $1. The industry was super pissed off. Singles were more than $1. And let's say the average album had, let's say, 12 songs. The average CD at that time was more than $12, albeit that at least had to be shipped and manufactured. But they were pissed off. They did not like it. But they had no choice because Steve Jobs quite accurately told them, either you do this or you'll completely go away. And that set in motion the new phenomenon of the tech industry telling the music industry what to do. So it used to be the music industry bitch slapping the artist. Now it was the tech industry bitch slapping the music industry, which was still bitch slapping the artist. Karma of a sort, karma of a certain kind. And one thing led to another. The success of iTunes led to the invention of streaming, because now we had fast enough internet in most countries to do this. Spotify was one of the first major ones to do it. Others got into the game. Apple is a huge player now. Amazon's a huge player now. We have other smaller but high quality ones that are specialists like Tidal or Cobas, and that's that. And now the music industry itself is more of a glorified public relations firm, because you don't need them to record the music, because anyone with a computer and the ability to afford or borrow some microphones and some interfaces can make their own album at home. Distribution is either free or next to free for anyone that has a computer or a smartphone for that matter. And so the music industry now really exists only as a promotional tool, because self promotion is great, and it's liberating, but obviously the music industry, with what's left of it, they still have the ability to promote and push. What the music industry, though, is more concentrated on now is licensing and selling old music. Because of its commercial potential, but they're not really doing much with new music anymore. They could have saved themselves if they embraced Napster, partnered with it, maybe even invested in it and worked out mutual agreements. Instead, they did possibly the stupidest business decision ever. I mean, I think this makes the new Coke, for those who remember that, look intelligent. So that's the legacy. I think people like Chuck D, who are on the side of the people, were right. People like Lars Ulrich were wrong in trying to hang on to a format of music distribution and commercialization that was really already obsolete by 1999. And it just needed Napster to show the world just how obsolete it was. That's my take. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe. We will see you next time. Take care.